I'm in the unenviable position of having to follow the excellent panel that you've already listened to, but such is life. And as Breed said, I am a new member of the European Parliament, but prior to that I was in the Irish Parliament for 8 years. And when I was coming here this morning, I was thinking, well, how do I feel about this event? And it's mixed, and I'll sum it up by saying that I'm glad, sad and mad to be here. I'm very, very glad that we are in a process of direct negotiations beginning now. I'm absolutely thrilled that people are off their knees around the globe and are demanding justice in terms of human rights and environmental respect. That is a wonderful opportunity. But of course, it's very sad that the backdrop to those movements is the fact that continues to be Indigenous communities exploited for profit, people being murdered, products that we buy in Europe and companies that operate from our bases are drenched in the blood of others. And I am incredibly mad that this process has gone on as long as it has, and I'm a little bit sick of the talking, to be perfectly frank. Now is the time for action, as the other speakers have said, and we've got to have mandatory rules which have to be legally binding. And I'll give you an example from Ireland in the Irish Parliament. One of my colleagues, a senator, an independent senator, moved forward legislation on economic in the occupied territories bill, a piece of legislation to prohibit dealings, business dealing in territories that were illegally occupied and where the proceeds of those territories were benefiting the occupying power. That legislation went through various stages of the Irish Parliament. It caused absolute consternation from Israel, actually, in a large part, but it wasn't Israeli specific. It could have dealt with, say, Western Sahara or any other areas that were illegally occupied. But why was there such a reaction to that piece of legislation? I mean, operating and settlements are illegal anyway. Respect for human rights obligations is already there. Why would that be a big fuss? It was a big fuss because it was law. And law and binding law can be incredibly powerful, particularly if we match it with hitting the pockets of the multinational corporations. So that is the backdrop to this, and it is critically important. And I just want to emphasise the points made by the others. This has to be legally binding, absolutely critical. I think one of the other areas that's already emerged over the course of the morning is the need to really use this process to draw attention to the gender aspect of the human rights abuses and the violations on human rights defenders. And when we're getting into a process of where we're looking at some of the articles, for example, Article 4.9 and so on the rights of victims, as far as I'm concerned, we need to build into that specific examples in relation to women in particular. I think when we talk about prevention, there needs to be assessments of the gendered impact of these areas. I think another area that deserves a lot of attention is the whole area of the need for consultation and prior consent from activities, for the activities of multinationals by Indigenous groups, civil societies and so on. But again, it comes back to my other point about the law. I mean, already they're supposed to seek prior consent. That's already there and international law. So why, when we're looking at the terms of this treaty now, and it is something that maybe people want to comment on, the slogan is used, free, prior and informed consultation. That's not the word of international law. It's consent is the word. So free, prior and informed consent has to be part of this. Now, all of you know that's been violated already, but we absolutely need to get that in there and get that bound and in there. Now, we mentioned in the plenary this morning, the European Parliament has voted a number of times in favour of a binding treaty, and that's an incredibly positive thing, and I suppose in a sense I'm proud to be now part of the European Parliament as a result of that. But I'm ashamed to be part of a European institution that's still dragging its feet on these issues. And the fact that the European Union hasn't got a negotiating stance at this stage of the process is utterly scandalous. And I mean, I really salute the efforts of the groups that are here, the NGOs, the campaigners who put us on our toes and keep us informed. You have done an absolutely tremendous job. But we also need to step up our gear with our other EU institutions, and I think it might be useful for all of us here to say and to demand that the European Union secure a negotiating mandate by the next session of the working group next year at the latest, and I'll certainly pledge to that, but I think everybody else should also try and put up the pressure on the European Union in that regard, because they are too quiet on a global scale. I've only been there about 2 months, and I am sick listening to respect for the rule of law, respect for fundamental rights, all of this stuff which is said and may be well intended, but then you compare it to the actions and you go, sorry lads, but the dots are not being joined up here. And I'm not saying that, you know, I come from a country where we haven't joined the dots either, and we have a lot to be ashamed of as well, and I'm certainly not going to miss the opportunity of being here to give the Irish government a kick because they deserve one. I mean, the UN Special Rapporteur has called on member states to do a lot more, and me as an Irish person need to pressurise my government to do more because they haven't done enough. They say, oh, we can't do anything because we have to wait for the European Union to move first. No, you don't. That's actually not true. You can do initiatives on yourselves. I'm glad that our Parliament did actually move the first piece of legislation for fossil fuel divestment, whereby the government wouldn't be involved in any investment in fossil fuel companies and so on. So look, we do have huge challenges. We really do. But we will never get a better opportunity to address them than the opportunity we have now. And it's never as important as it is now. So I really hope this event energises people. The efforts of many of you people here who work in NGOs, I can guarantee you, has energised me, and I certainly want to go forward from this to move things on for not just the people on the front line, but for the future of humanity and our environment.